Hey guys, welcome to this episode. We have Justin Rimon with us from Justroc podcast.
What's up? What's up?
How's it going? How's everything
How
going?
are you?
I'm doing good. Well, I'm doing way better to be more exact. The beginning of it was pretty rough, especially since I'm very outdoorsy and like live a more like active lifestyle. So when I kind of had that all taken away, it like definitely left me in a bit of a rut in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But I would definitely say that the past couple of weeks I've been much more like stable. Like LA has been reopening more of like their parks and trails and even the beach like every week. So things are starting to feel a lot better now. So I can start like hiking but I need to, stay obviously responsible on the trails. But so things are kind of like going back to normal a little bit, like slowly but surely. So I feel definitely better about that.
Yeah. What kept you busy during quarantine, like the beginning of it all?
Ooh, let's see. I had to become like creative, right? Like since I couldn't go out in the mountains. So like I was just like running around the neighborhood, going to local parks, pretending like my destination was like In-N-Out or like Chick-fil-A. Those were like my peaks. Urban exploration. So kind of got a little goofy and like funny with that. But I would say that biking kind of became like my new hiking in a sense the past couple of weeks because since I wasn't able to be out on the trails, like I've always had a bike, but I had a flat tire, so I never really bothered with it for a while. And then a friend of mine actually like invited me out for a ride, so that was kind of like my motivation to like like inflate the tire and then like fix some things on the bike, and that got me more outdoors, right? So like I started taking this bike path in the west side of LA called the Bologna Bike Creek Path,
Oh,
and
nice.
I would take that all the way to like Marina Del Rey, and I would bike even to like Manhattan Beach, and like and then all the way
Wow, that's a
to
little bit of
Venice.
a trek.
Yeah, I think from where I am to Manhattan Beach is maybe like 9 miles one way, so the total would be around like an 18 to like 23 miles.
Wow.
I'm thinking from because when I was living in LA, I was like near Marina Del Rey, so I'm thinking from Marina Del Rey to Manhattan Beach seems like a bit of a trek. No, it would be longer.
Yeah, I think it's like probably like 5-6 miles from Marina. Like I would bike, that jetty, like with the outcropping of the rocks that go out into the water
Yeah.
Yeah.
where all the boats are. I would bike all the way to there, and then there's actually a bike path that leads into Playa del Rey, Dockweiler, and you can take it all the way down to like Hermosa Redondo.
Yeah, I've been on that bike path. It's beautiful to like bike along the coast. You're right on the beach.
Oh, it's the best. Like I've just been doing
Yeah.
that like every weekend for the most part, I would say.
Yeah. And during quarantine, this is also how we kind of reconnected. You started a podcast called Just Trek.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about that. What is it all about, and what kind of people do you interview?
Yeah. So just to backtrack real quick, to your first question,
Yeah.
I wanted to mention that the biggest thing that kind of kept me sane during the quarantine was launching my podcast, and I actually did that on my birthday.
Oh,
Because
really?
yeah, originally for my birthday, I had a really big party planned. We were going to do something called me and my friends throw an event called the Sunset Social, and we basically throw this big beach party on Venice Beach. And we have like all of our friends
Nice.
DJ. It's all like house music, like all that kind of music. And like we had a Facebook event and everything. We have a canopy. People bring drinks and food, and like I was really looking forward to that. Then obviously, the COVID struck, and that was a big bummer. But obviously, we can't do a party and be irresponsible. And instead of like wanting to do like a Zoom dance party, like even though I think those are like low key dope and really fun, I
Mm-hmm.
basically like wanted to like reclaim my birthday by like elevating myself through like a new passion project and endeavor. So I just wanted to mention that
Totally.
first.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Going into a new year, doing something new.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
like,
for
well,
sure.
I was like, if I'm not going to do a party, then I'm just going to focus on me and elevating myself. Like, it's been a really big blessing in disguise. Like, I don't want to say I'm happy the quarantine happened, obviously, but it definitely sparked something in me that I had been thinking about. So
Right. Like it gave you the
Yeah.
time to actually pursue it.
yeah, I was like, well, if I can't be in the outdoors, I'm gonna talk about it. So that was kind of like my mentality.
I love that. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about it, about your podcast.
Yes, so it's not just like a hiking podcast. I would describe it as like an LA outdoor inspired and lifestyle podcast. So like on the show, you'll hear like stories and adventures from like badass hikers, local explorers to even like dancers and artists from the Los Angeles community. And also from beyond, like here and there, I'll interview guests from like another country or like out of state if they make sense to the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say like the podcast like aims to like elevate people through conversation. You can get like tips and advice on hiking in the outdoors, and also just discover new places to explore that you didn't realize were like around you, whether it was like around the neighborhood or maybe just a few hours away. And you get to basically hear stories from the people themselves that have conquered like these epic mountains or like really cool trails. And actually in the beginning, Just Trek was not a podcast. It started back in like 2018, I would say, or 2017. It was just originally like an outdoor blog. And it started with like my Instagram profile, and then I got a website, and then it became like a hiking crew. Cause as I started hiking, I started building like a community around me, and then people started, you know, I guess I started sparking people's interest, and they wanted to join, or they wanted like advice or like tips. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then from a hiking crew, then I started this podcast. So like the podcast is an extension of the brand that I'm really like, I really believe in. Like it's like podcasting is really powerful, that I'm sure that both of you have been discovering like through your own journey.
Totally.
Right?
It's like a whole other world of thing. Like, and you get
Yeah.
into it and you don't even realize. We just had another conversation like this. Like you get into podcasting, you're like, let's have these great conversations. And then you're like, oh shit, there's so much work to do behind it that you
so
weren't
much work.
expecting.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I'm going to take a break after today from podcasting for like a week and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean,
you know what I'm talking about, right?
I know what you're
seriously,
talking about.
Dorit told me, she's like, my friend Justin told me that we should maybe like pace ourselves. And I was like, you know what? After the past month that we've been podcasting, because similar to you, we started during quarantine. It was like we finally had time to do this thing that we had been talking about for a few years. And I'm just like, damn, Dorit, I don't know how I would be doing this if it weren't the both of us splitting the workload. Like I do the editing, she does the social media. We both, it's just like so much goes into it. So I can't even imagine the pressure you might feel at times, just like with the workload. It's like a full-time job.
Yeah, it basically is my full-time job at the moment. Like it definitely feels like that. And it's a lot of work. Like I have some people around me who like help me out with like the audio and the sound here and there, that I kind of like advisors or like, people that I can tap into for help.
Right.
But
And
yeah, it's a lot of work for sure.
Yeah. And the people that you interview, are they people that you mainly already know, or are you reaching out to also people that, are kind of in your community and world, but you haven't met yet?
Yeah, so it's a mixture of both. So when I first started, I started with people that, I have close connections to and ties to. And then also like, being in the outdoor community for maybe like 2-3 years, I definitely had people in mind that I maybe had met through social media, specifically Instagram, or like through other content that I wanted to reach out to. Like my most recent guest, it's kind of crazy. I never met her before when I did the podcast, but like we kept in touch through like, Instagram. And I was like, I think this girl would be such a great guest on this show. It's kind of like placing a bet, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, I think this girl would kill it. And it's like one of my best episodes right now. It's episode 5 with Dora Santana. And the craziest thing happened. So I did a hike this past weekend, right? And it was Mount Baldy. And I've never met this girl before. And when we got to the summit, this is the tallest peak in all of LA County. I thought I was seeing a mirage. I was like, is that Dora? She just happened to be at the summit at the same time.
Whoa.
So I screamed her name. She looked at me and she was like, no way. And it was like a scene out of a movie. Like we hugged each other. Like I lifted her up. We definitely caused a scene for sure.
Wow. It's like synchronicity at its finest.
I was like, what is going on in the world right now? Like, yeah,
Totally.
So it's people that I haven't met, but then I guess I met her just over the weekend. But yeah, I first started with people that I felt I had close connections to. And then I'm also trying to mix it up. It's not just like super hardcore hiking people.
Mm-hmm.
It's also like, let's say like, for example, like Diplo. You guys know Diplo, obviously.
Yes.
Like Diplo is a huge DJ in the world, right? But he's also a really big hiker. There's actually an article on him on how like he uses hikes in the outdoors, as on Outside Magazine, to recharge, before he does a festival. So I'm also interviewing like DJs and artists who have like an affinity with the outdoors and nature. So that's
Right.
like the common thread and commonality.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's why we really connected too, is because I like to hike a lot. I've been exploring more hikes in LA. I have so many more to explore that you'll have to refer me to, and we'll have to go on some together. But yeah, it's just the perfect place to live in and explore all these great trails around us.
I had no clue until 3 years ago. So
Yeah, exactly.
that's the biggest thing I would say.
Yeah.
Are you originally from LA?
So I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland, and then I moved
Okay.
to Los Angeles 2004 for college, and ever since then I've been living out here. So a long time now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was it always a thing that you were into, or more recently you got into it?
I would say my hiking journey started 2017, so about like 3 years ago.
Okay.
Like I was more
And
of a sports person. I was a dancer for a long time, so yeah.
right, you were a dancer. Tell us a little bit more about that. That was
Oh man, I don't even know where to start with that. So I was specifically a b-boy or a break dancer. So the word b-boy is kind of like the original term. Break
mhm.
dancer is more like what the mainstream media coined it. So we usually don't say break dancer, but it's okay. I've been a dancer for like 15 plus years. I started back in 2000, and in the community or the scene, my dancer name is Justroc. So like Justroc. And I actually got the name from an ex-girlfriend's cousin. So that's kind of random. But yeah, I first learned in Baltimore, and I was taught by this guy named Louis Guanzone and another person called Mark Nieto. And they were actually previous guests on my podcast. They were episode 1 and 3, but they're also like outdoorsy too. So like that was perfect. And I was happy to have them as like my first guest on the first episode. And we met through a musical Broadway show, and that's how like I met them and they taught me. Super random, right?
That's
That's
crazy.
And
awesome.
yeah, I can't believe I can actually say that out loud. Musical Broadway show. Um, and then yeah, like it's been such a wild and crazy journey being a dancer. Like I competed and battled and performed like all over the US. Like I perform in like these underground like jams or events, and also more of like mainstream competitions
Yeah, I love that.
like a World of Dance, like a freestyle session. Like I'll never forget, like one of my craziest like experiences was actually in New York, and you're both from New York originally or lived there
Yeah.
for a
Yeah.
while, right?
Yeah, that's where
So
we
like
met.
so breaking was born in the Bronx, right?
Yeah.
And there was a huge event in 2007 called Rebel BC1. It was like the world finals. It's like the Super Bowl of breaking, like one versus one, like one dancer versus one dancer. And then there was another event after that day, and I competed in the Bronx, and it was like the craziest. Like the venue was hella sketch. Like the outdoors like was just, it's really nitty and gritty, but it was like the coolest experience because I got to like feel like I was really like in it, like where it was born, you know.
I mean, honestly, the Bronx is super New York. You go there and it's like you really
Yeah.
get a sense
Yeah.
of the New York spirit. Like really, like the streets of New York, you could feel
Yep.
it in the Bronx, 100%. Like I have a whole Bronx crew that I love so much
Oh, that's dope.
because they're just like they're an authentic representation for sure of a part of New York, whether it's for like street art, music, dance, like you definitely get so much culture there for sure. So
Oh, so
I,
much culture.
yeah, and I feel like you have an affinity to music, obviously, because you know dancing and music go together, and yeah, so that's very cool. How did all of that kind of affect your life just overall, dancing and your background in it? Like how does it affect you today?
It changed my life, quite frankly. Like just to backtrack, also like real quick shout outs to the 3 crews that I was in. I was part of a crew called the Militia. They were pretty well known in the West Coast. I was in another crew called Diamonds in the Rough. That was like my college crew. And also my other crew was called Rattlesnakes, like a playoff Rattlesnakes. And that was more like members of different crews. We would hit each other up and battle under that name at different events. So I just wanted to shout them out real quick. But to answer your question, it affected my life tremendously. It changed my life. Like my background as a passionate dancer, it really catapulted me into the world of like event producing, experiential marketing, community building, and also like even talent management, which was super crazy because I even got to hold a dream job of mine because of dance. So back in 2011, I was the talent manager for a celebrity dance group called, I don't know if you guys are familiar, they're called IME Crew. And
No.
they won MTV's America's Best Dance Crew season 6.
Okay.
So you can kind of think of them as like the Jabberwockies, but like super
Mhm.
international, really big age range from like 15 to 30. And that was just like the most overwhelming and most rewarding job I've ever had, you know? Definitely learned a lot about myself. And yeah, like just being in dance really like fortified my confidence in myself. It was great for me, like spiritually, physically, mentally, like you name it. Like
Totally.
it was my passion and my outlet, and really was a big part of my identity for many, many years.
I mean, do you still dance?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm not active like how I used to be. Like I don't compete anymore or perform. I kind of got a little bit burnt out, you know, like when you're in something for so long, even though you love it so much, sometimes you need to take a step back, and like
For
there's other
sure.
things that you want to pursue or other interests. So that was like my mentality when I stopped dancing. But I definitely like if there's no events happening now, but like if you would catch me at an event and I'm really feeling the music, I might throw down in the circle like once or twice, or just dance for fun, you know, just like some party dancing.
Yeah.
um
I
but
guess
yeah.
I'm gonna have to party with you guys when I get to LA. Like,
Exactly.
I got you both, you know, like if you're friends with a dancer, you know that we know what's up with the spots to go
a
to. And it's
hundred
actually really
percent.
funny when Dorit told me about your guys' podcast. I was like, Soul Shift Sundays, like that sounds like an event that I will go with my crew to, like go jam in the park or an event. And I was like, I love the name. It already resonated with me like a
Well,
lot. So
Dorit and I actually have such a similar background to you in different way, but like
mm,
event production, and like I used to manage DJs and artists, street artists, and so like
nice.
being in that world, experiential marketing, like so we come from in a different way a similar background, so I feel like we would totally vibe.
Oh yeah, for sure. It sounds like we've done similar work. We're into similar things. We like good music.
For
So
sure.
Yeah. We all kind of come from a similar world. And with your dance background, it's so interesting because do you feel like that kind of inspired your hiking and passion, or was there something in particular that inspired you to get into hiking?
yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. Like, so I got into hiking back in I think April 2017, and it was actually the absence of dance in my life that inspired me to get a gym membership again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I got a gym membership, and I was like, okay, like I'm getting my gym groove, you know, I'm going like 3-4 times a week. And I was like, okay, this is cool, this is great, you know, I'm getting in shape, I'm feeling good about myself. But then there was something missing, you know. It was kind of like, what can I do on the weekends in addition to me going to the gym to supplement that, right? And like, although the gym is cool, like, you know, you're confined to the same place, you see the same people, you know, which is cool because it's like it can be community oriented. But I was like missing something. I was like, what can I do on the weekends where I'm not confined to the same space and that feels different every time I do it, right? So
Right.
that's how the thought of
Totally.
like hiking kind of popped into my mind. And I had never really, quite frankly, like explored like much of anything of the local LA trails or Southern California or just like California in general.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, damn, I've been here for like, what was it? I think when I realized that moment, it had been 13 years I've been in Los
Wow.
Angeles.
Whoa.
And like, yeah, I've been at the beach like many times, but like, have I actually been in the mountains? Have I seen the view from the very top? Nope.
Right.
And I would say to dig deeper into your question, like what inspired me. So it was that, but so I wanted to first start hiking in Malibu, right? Because you know it's Malibu, and there was a hike I found online called Coral Canyon, super easy and chill, good for beginners. And I went to it, and it was absolutely gorgeous. You know, next to the coastline, the beach, like wildflowers everywhere, and that was kind of like my gateway into hiking, right? And then there's one particular hike that just blew my mind. It's called Sandstone Peak, and it's the tallest mountain in like the Santa Monica Mountains. Santa Monica Mountains meaning like Malibu and Pacific Palisades. And I did it as a sunset hike, and it was that hike where I was like truly like inspired, like in my mind, like I was like, I love this. Like I want to explore more. I want to see basically everything that the LA outdoor scene has to offer. because I'll never forget like how the sunset hit the mountains on that day and like how much fun I had and just how good I felt about myself. And that was like the moment being on top of Sandstone Peak that like sparked like my true inspiration for and my love for hiking.
Yeah.
So
I've,
crazy
I've
how the
never,
elements come together and this like
Yeah, for
magic
sure.
moment and like, whoa, just open a whole new world.
Yeah, I was just sitting up there like, oh my God, I think I might have found something that I truly care, like not care, but like that I might be into as much as how I felt about dance. Right.
right.
So
Isn't it so addicting too when you like explore and discover a new hike? You just want to see more and more new ones and explore different landscapes.
oh, absolutely. Like once you catch the hiking bug or like or just being more outdoorsy or doing outdoor activities, it just opens up your whole world. You know, it's not just, just like working from your cubicle or whatever, right? Or just like
Exactly.
going to the same places to eat and the gym or whatever. You're like, wow, like the world is so big even around me.
Yeah. And it brings you back. It's like pretty grounding, I think, too.
Yeah, like the grounding thing is so powerful because like whenever you go out in nature or like big mountains, you feel like insignificant, right? But like in a
Exactly.
good way, meaning
Yes.
like
Right.
you feel almost like everything around you, like your problems are gonna go away. Like everything's gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be all right. Like because everything in our mind is so amplified, right? Like
You just feel so small.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
when you look around you, you're like, oh my God, like I'm insignificant to everything around me. Like I'm gonna be okay. Like my anxiety problems or depressive episodes, they're gonna diminish, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. It's so healing, I think. And what are your two favorite hikes that you've ever been on in the world? Anywhere?
So I haven't done much international hiking, but
Okay.
I've done some really epic and iconic like summits or mountains, and they're actually all in California. Um, I would say at the top of my list, hands down, is a mountain called Mount Whitney. And if you're not familiar, it's in California, maybe like 4 hours from Los Angeles. It's like in Sequoia National Park, Inyo National Forest.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the surrounding areas is just spectacular. And Mount Whitney is the tallest mountain in the continental United States. So like the lower 48 states. The mountain is actually 14,508 feet.
Wow.
And you're gonna trip out. The mileage it's 22 miles.
Wow.
Wow. How long did that hike take you to
Oh
complete?
God, that's a whole episode.
I'm
So
like that's steep and that high.
yeah, so long story short, so it's 22 miles long, right? It's like the LA marathon of like hikes, right? You can
Right.
kind of think of it like that. And it's really serious. Like you have to train for it. So we weren't supposed to be on the mountain this long, but we were because one person in our group, this girl got injured and she got flown out in a helicopter. It was really intense. So I was on the
Mm.
mountain for 22 and a half hours.
Wow.
Full
And
day.
it should have just taken, well, not should have, because it's still ridiculous. Like we should have finished the mountain in like 16 hours.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
the
That's a commitment.
most intense day and most gorgeous day I've ever experienced, like in a long time, if not my life. And it was just, I didn't even know if I was going to get off the mountain. I thought I was going to have to like, figure out where to like spend the night with like my group. Like it was pretty intense. Like it's actually a separate episode. I actually interviewed the girl who got injured in our group. So that's going to be a really good episode, a really
Yeah.
good story.
Yeah, we'll have to tune into that one.
Yeah, for
It's like
sure.
your survival mode kicks in that moment, I feel like.
Yeah, it was just like, okay, well, everything I've been training for and prepping, like it kicks in now.
Right.
So I'm like filtering water from like the lake and everything. Like we're bringing out like our sleeping bags, like not to get cold. Like it was a lot. And
Yeah.
luckily our friend had like those like Garmin devices that you can call for like a helicopter.
Thank God.
And that was its own like experience, her trying to contact them. And then like we had to hike down the mountain in the dark for 4 hours. Like that was its own
Yeah.
experience as well. So that was insane.
Wow.
So that's my number one. And number two, I had a hard time with. I'm definitely going to throw in an honorable mention, but I would say Half Dome in Yosemite National Park. For those of you not familiar, it's like the most iconic landmark in Yosemite. And Yosemite is like, I would say like 5-6 hours away from Los Angeles. And Half Dome, the shape of the peak, it's actually, you guys know the North Face logo.
Hmm.
It's actually the real life North Face logo. So that's where that company gets their logo inspiration from.
Right.
And
Nice.
it's just absolutely gorgeous. It definitely ranks up there with Mount Whitney. It's what is it, 16 miles. There's like this infamous cable section where you climb 500 feet that everyone's terrified of.
Yeah.
And the craziest thing happened like 4 days prior to my group summit of Half Dome. A lady died falling down the cables, and it was all over the news. And
What?
it had not happened in a couple of years. So that was already like, are you kidding me? Like 4 days before like our attempted summit, now we have to deal with like the anxiety and dread
Right.
of like this story. So that was just like, oh my God. And so much crazy shit happened that day. Like my friend cramped on the cables climbing up. Like, it's just like, it was
Yeah.
just so ridiculous. Like so much moments, so much stories, but we conquered it. We were absolutely destroyed and exhausted, but it was like the best feeling.
Yeah. I remember
Yeah.
seeing on Instagram you posting videos about that hike, and I was just like, wow. It's really intense. I mean, you're holding onto cables as you're just like climbing up the dome side of the rock.
Yeah, if you look it up, just type in Half Dome cables.
Yeah.
It's like these two steel cables that it's like the final boss level of the video game, right? You're just like, you look up and you're
Like
just
level up.
yeah, it's like level up or just go turn around pretty much.
Yeah.
So that's sorry, go ahead.
No. Go finish.
Oh, I was just going to say my honorable mention actually is this mountain. It's a local mountain here in LA. It's called Mount Baldy. And that's the tallest mountain in all of LA County. It's like 10,064 feet.
Mm-hmm.
It's like our local Mount Everest. That's actually the one where I met my podcast guest on the summit.
Right.
And like, that's my favorite, like challenging, like strenuous day hike to do in like, I would say the Los Angeles area. And it means a lot to me because that was like one of my first major peaks. It's part of the 6-Pack of Peaks challenge, which is basically a challenge where you conquer all of Southern California's highest peaks. And that mountain always means a lot to me because it like showed me like, oh, I can do this. I can bag longer, steeper, and higher mountains and like really like unlock like my potential, you know, like mentally and physically.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's
I
amazing.
mean, you've been through like extreme experiences for sure. Did you ever do research about hiking before you got into it? Like, did you find yourself tapping into like any tools or information that you had learned prior to it that helped you in those moments?
Oh, in those extreme moments specifically?
Yeah, I mean, like, what are some of the tools? Like, maybe you read books, maybe you were watching
Mhm.
videos. Like, what are some things that kind of helped you be prepared for hikes in general, and then especially for these kinds of situations?
So in the beginning, you know, I was a newbie. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I didn't know about any of the hikes or any resources. So, you know, like any newbie, you go on Google, right? So I knew I wanted to hike in Malibu, so I just typed like Malibu hikes. And I think the first resource that I really gravitated towards was a website called modernhiker.com. And that's a really big like West Coast, like LA hiking blog. It's really,
Okay.
he has his own book on Griffith Park. Like he has a book on like day hiking in Los Angeles, like super legit guy. I think the guy's name is Casey Schreiner. Hopefully I'm not butchering it. Really great articles, like great copy. Like I really like the articles on Modern Hiker. If you guys are, and it's also, I think it's mainly in the West Coast, but there's like articles on other places in the US and the world, I think. And then I would say my other biggest resource was a friend of mine. Her name is Paloma Esmaria. She was my episode 4 guest on my podcast. And she was such a great friend and like a huge resource because she's like a hardcore like LA based like hiker or peak bagger, we call them, right? And she was the one that was like giving me recommendations of like these big crazy mountains that I never heard of, where I almost like died like 2-3 times. And like she was the one that like whenever I told her like I'm thinking of doing this hike, she would literally text me and call me as soon as I would say that and be like, okay, check this out. Like, do you have this and that? Like, make sure you have this when you go up to the mountain because the weather might change. Like, make sure that you do your research and like know before you go. And she would drop all these gems on me. So really big shout out to her because now that I think about it, I probably wouldn't have done all these like really intense like challenging day hikes if she never put it in my mind, like these names, because I got instantly intrigued. So definitely a friend of mine, Paloma. And then I don't know if you guys have heard of an app called All Trails. Are you guys familiar?
Yeah,
Yes.
I use that too.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like it's like Yelp for hiking, right? Or the outdoors. You can read
Mhm.
reviews, you can rate different hikes or parks, and then you can see photos. And I think the biggest thing, like to answer your question, Tatiana, like about like in extreme situations, like I think All Trails, like I have like the pro version. I paid like $20-$30 for a year, which is nothing. If you have the pro version, you can download the offline maps. So if you don't have reception, like which is typical in most mountains,
Yeah.
you can track where you're going and know where exactly you need to go to, right? So I would say All Trails has helped me get lost on all my craziest hikes, like pretty well, not 100%, but like really well. And I also would
Right.
say like as you get more into your outdoor journey, you probably don't want to rely like always on your phone and on an app, because what happens if your phone dies, right? Then you need to know how to use a compass and a map. I just
Totally.
wanted to say that and put that out there. But All Trails has definitely helped me from getting lost and not going down the wrong path and like falling off the ledge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What are some of those gems that she gave you? Like the things that you do research before you do something, but then there are always those variables that you didn't expect to research, you weren't like ready for. So what are some of those like little gems that she gave you that maybe you wouldn't have prepped for otherwise?
Yeah. So this might sound like common sense, but always bring layers and a rain jacket, right? Because the mountains that I were doing, they were the San Gabriel Mountains. It was like the San Bernardino National Forest and San Gorgonio, which is all Southern California. Like, although you'll look on like mountain forecast or your weather app, and it'll be like, oh, shiny, clear skies, like perfect weather. That's never the case. And she
It's like
she definitely,
surprise.
yeah, she definitely was like, Justin, like I'm telling you right now, like always bring layers, extra layers, and a rain jacket, because I promise you, a lot of times the weather, it'll change on you on a dime, because the weather system in a mountain changes drastically no matter what the weather app says. I would say mountain forecast is more or less more accurate, but like that definitely always stuck with me. If you're doing like a local trail that's a few miles, then maybe you don't have to really trip out about that. But if you're doing like a long day hike meaning anywhere from like 6 to 10, like maybe like 7 plus, maybe like 10 plus miles, but would take like anywhere from like 7 to 10 hours. Like you need to like have those items, and also just like what's a good gem? I know there's so many. Um,
I want to know them.
yeah, why am I blanking out right now? Right?
Because I wasn't supposed to ask you that question.
Oh no, I know it. I'm just trying to figure out which one. It's like also just carrying more water than you think you need, because people never understand how to gauge water on the trail, right? So like a good rule of thumb is like,
Water.
you want to drink 1 liter of water every 2 hours. So if a hike is like if the hike is going to take 6 hours long, then bring at least 3 liters of water. So that's like a general rule of thumb. And also, this is actually really important. If you get into like long day hikes, like when you get trail runners or a hiking boot, always get a size up, and don't worry about looking cute on the trail or like your feet look too big, because you want to feel comfortable. Because if you get a shoe or a boot that's like perfect for your foot swells up over the long
Totally.
course of a hike. So you're going to feel absolutely miserable, and you might not even like hiking anymore after that.
For
So
sure.
definitely getting a shoe that's like a half a size up or a size up, especially if it's a long day hike, because your feet swell up.
Hmm.
Um, what else? What else?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
No,
A
yeah,
lot of
because
people don't get that.
a lot of people are like, oh, I want to, yeah, it's cool to to look stylish on the trail, but no one's really checking out the shoe. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And how big it is. Like people are huffing and puffing and like suffering through these hikes. You know what I mean?
totally.
There's other gems off the top, but I'm kind of blanking out on them right now.
All
But if I
right, those
remember,
were
I'll come
really
back
good
to it.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, those gems kind of hit on like things that could help you, if you're challenged. But have you ever faced like specific mental and physical challenges throughout your hiking experiences? Like what are they and what have they taught you, like in life in general and about yourself?
Yeah, I have a couple of stories. I'll probably mention like two of them. So, so there's this mountain in LA County called Iron Mountain. The name already is ridiculous, right? And so about this mountain, the thing that I dealt with, this particular issue that I had with this mountain, was what we call in the outdoor community summit fever. Are you guys familiar?
No.
So summit fever is like the obsession and like the impulse and feeling of wanting to reach the top of the mountain or the peak, no matter what the cost. So meaning like you're ignoring and disregarding like how your body feels and like dangers that might be presented to you if you keep going, whether that be like altitude sickness, which you can actually die from, or just like complete exhaustion or like injury. And, you know, I'm a very competitive person, you know, like I grew up playing soccer my entire life. And then I was also competitive in dance. I was competing with my crews or even solo, and I'd travel around the US to like battle. And so I had that same competitive spirit with hiking. I wanted to bag bigger, longer, taller peaks, which is incredible, right? It's always great to push yourself. But for myself, understanding that balance of like when to push yourself and when to know like to back off and understand like, okay, I'm reaching the danger threshold and I have to like humble my ego, right? And so dealing with, I would say, summit fever, especially like I would say this hike called Iron Mountain, it's considered the most strenuous and most isolated day hike in all of like Southern California or the San Gabriel mountain range. And the San Gabriel mountain range, for everyone listening, is the mountain range behind downtown Los Angeles. And it's 16 miles, which is already insane, right? But it's because it's so freaking steep. Like the inclines are literally like 55-degree inclines, and you need like hiking poles. Like that's how steep it is. It's loose dirt, super isolated.
Like rock climbing.
Yeah, 55 like plus degree inclines on a lot of sections, and it's like it takes you on a roller coaster ride. It's like you lose elevation, you gain elevation, you lose elevation, you gain elevation. And I'll never forget. So I did it with my good friend Mark Feichel. We were just bagging all these like hardcore peaks at the time, and we were 1 mile from the summit. And this was the first time I ever felt in my hiking career or whatever that like I was woozy and dizzy, and I felt like I might just pass out. And I'd never felt that on any other mountain. But like, I was like, no, Justin, like you can push through this, you can do it. But we also started really late at 9 a.m., which is way too late for this hike because you're going to experience a lot of the heat, right?
Right.
So like I was 1 mile from the summit, and like my friend and I were talking, and he was like, can you do it? Can you keep pushing? And I really wanted to keep doing it. But I was like, man, like it's not a normal mile, right? This is like there's several false summits. It's like the steepest last mile to the summit. Like it's going to take me at least an hour and a half to reach the top from that point, or 2 hours. And I just had to be like, Justin, like, and you'll always hear this term all the time in like the outdoor community, like the mountain will always be there. Right. And I really struggled with that because I already had came so far to bag what I would have considered like my great achievement in hiking yet. Right. I was like 1 mile from the summit. I was like, if I pass out, like no one's going to help us. Like we're so isolated, like there's no reception. This is like the most isolated summit in this mountain range. Like literally when we did the hike, y'all, like there was no one else on the mountain around us. There was no one else on the trail.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah, it was, and I tried not to think about that because if you roll your ankle, you're screwed. What are you going to do?
Yeah, totally.
Or are you going to hobble down, or are you going to have to spend the night there?
Right.
So I had like to keep your ego in check.
Yeah, so that was the mental and physical, right? Like not having summit fever. And I was like, ugh. It's like, Mark, yeah, you're right. Like I can't keep pushing myself. I've never felt this way before. I feel woozy and dizzy. I might pass out. Let's go back down. So that was the right decision to make. And a month or two later, I did conquer it again in a better mentality and much earlier. So I would say that. And then what else? There was what is the other mountain? Oh, so there's another mountain called Strawberry Peak, right? Sounds super friendly, but I want to
go.
I want to go there too.
Yeah, I'll definitely tell you about it more, Dorit, like afterwards for sure.
For sure.
And then obviously Tatiana, if you want to come out to LA.
Yeah, well, eventually.
Yeah, for sure. So of course, me being competitive, I was like, I want to do Strawberry Peak, but I'm going to do the Mountaineers route. right? So I'm going to do the crazy rock scrambling sections. And long story short, like we missed a switchback. A switchback is like a trail that zigzags up right to the peak. And we ended up like literally rock scrambling almost to the very top. Like it was the unsafest thing I've ever done in my life.
Wow.
And like it was okay in the beginning. Each time like we would get up, we get higher and higher. I was like, oh, this is not too bad. And then all of a sudden it started getting really sketchy and dangerous. And I almost reached the peak. And it wasn't even the official Strawberry Peak. It was just some random mountain top, right? And I'll never forget, there was one ledge I got stuck on for 5 minutes. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm going to fall off the mountain and I'm going to either be severely hospitalized or I'm going to die. So
That's scary.
I get anxiety hearing these things because it's like, I've definitely had those feelings before.
But was that just because you guys got off the trail, or was that the trail you were supposed to be on and it was just a lot more strenuous than anticipated?
So we were on the right trail, and then when we missed the switchback, we were off trail.
Got it.
But we thought it was so fun and adventurous, scrambling up this crazy straight route to the top, which was really stupid at that time.
Right.
And then, so I was at the top of so eventually my friend literally had to get behind me and push me up, and I jumped on the ledge and grabbed myself up to the top.
Wow.
And,
oh God.
And that's when I was like, okay, Justin, like no more summit fever. Like you got to go back down. But then it was like, shit, I got to go back down what I came from. Like that's already insane. I'm going to literally tumbleweed down the mountain. So I had to also like check my ego there. And I was like, I can't scramble any further up because we don't even know if this is going to like kind of converge into the main pathway that we were supposed to be on.
Right.
So yeah, I guess what I'm trying to get at with these stories is understanding like when to push yourself, but also knowing your limits before you hit like the danger threshold, and understanding that the mountain will always be there. And I think that also alludes to like even career stuff, right? Like we have like this one dream job or something that we're obsessed with, right? But like sometimes like you might lose yourself along the way or compromise yourself. And that's kind of like the whole like knowing your limits and knowing your danger threshold. So that might be as like not as an outdoorsy analogy, but more like personal, like career oriented.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. How do you, and to segue into something kind of similar, how do you feel like spending time outdoors has affected your overall well-being? Has it shifted you in any way?
Yeah. So I would say the spending time in the outdoors has elevated my overall well-being, both physically and mentally. Like physically, I've been in the best shape ever since my dancing days. And I love that about hiking because it's a crazy workout. You know, it's like running is cool and everything, but when you hike, it's like a slow burn, you know, it's a slow grind. So you're burning hella calories, especially when you do longer and steeper hikes. So physically, it's really important to me, especially because like on my dad's side, a lot of my dad's side has died or passed away because of like heart issues and heart problems or heart attack. And even my dad doesn't have the best, you know, health. So I told myself like, you know, especially now that I'm in like my early 30s, like health is really important to me. Like I need to not lose myself and like be physically active, you know, not super crazy, but maintain myself. So that definitely played a part in that. I would say it's elevated me mentally. Like it's just opened up my mind that there's like so much out there in the world, you know, for us to experience, whether it's local or even just a few hours away. And that, like what I mentioned earlier, that everything's going to be all right. Like a lot of the anxieties or thoughts of like where we should be in life, like in comparison to others, like those thoughts like go away for me, especially.
So it's like a meditative thing for you, just to like get back to the things that actually matter to you.
Yeah, like when you hike, like you're literally escaping the noise, because on a lot of these big, not even big ones, but a lot of mountains or hills, there's no reception.
Right.
You know, like our phone, as amazing and powerful as it is also a disease, right? Like sometimes I just grab my phone for no reason as a reflex. Like, why did I even look at my phone? You know what I mean? So I would definitely say that like mentally it's meant so much. In terms of like what you asked and how it shifted me, I would say it's shifted me in that it's really like reinvigorated my soul. Like it's something that I feel passionate about, like, and I feel like I've essentially reinvented myself as this more outdoor centric person, right?
Mm-hmm.
It helps me like harness like my full potential, makes me realize like I'm a badass, like if I tap deep within, like it's always going to be there, that I can do what I want to do, like when I train for it or put my mind to it and put in that effort. Um, and also it's just like something to look forward to like on the weekends besides events and parties, which I absolutely love, but like it's good to switch it up. So it's a good balance for me.
Right. Yeah. And with that, do you feel like you have a community with events and parties, but do you feel like you've created also a community through hiking?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, so one thing with me is like when I really enjoy something, I love spreading the love, right? Especially if I feel that people will find great value in it. And just like by me posting photos of like my adventures and like on Instagram or Facebook, I noticed that it was inspiring others to like get outdoors more and explore like their local trails. And they would ask if they could join, and or they would ask for recommendations. So that act of like interacting with them, it was definitely building community. And I would say like currently like I'm building a community of like outdoor enthusiasts through like the Justroc platform, right? Like
Right.
I'm like through my outdoor blog, justtrek.net, or it's also on Instagram. And also it's a hiking crew. Like I do pop-up hikes. I sometimes do sunset hikes, and people can have like a sense of like belonging, or like we like to call a tribe, right? Like it's great to do
Totally.
things on your own, like as a solo person, but we need that human interaction and that tribe feeling to like get even further than we thought we could, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also the podcast, like the podcast has been the biggest blessing, because now I can build a community online, and hopefully at some point I get to meet some of these people through the offline, meaning like the pop-up hikes uh and whatnot. So
Yeah, I mean, I know myself when I first moved to LA, I was starting to explore hikes just on my own. And you don't always meet people. You meet people on the hikes, but not necessarily people you stay in touch with or that you're going to meet up with
yep.
again and hike with. So I think it's always great when you meet like-minded people through like social media or listen to them on podcasts, and then you're able to, hear about maybe hikes that they're going on that you can join. Because going on solo hikes is great, but also going as a group is amazing too.
Yeah, I want to touch upon something real quick. Like, remember how you mentioned solo hikes?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to put it out there, like, guys, like solo hikes are incredible. I actually do recommend that as well, as long as you're not in a super isolated place and there's some kind of foot traffic, just to be safe. Because what I've noticed is it's a balance of me for like, group outings and also solo hiking, because I think solo hiking is so powerful because you're literally having that deep conversation with yourself, right?
Totally, for sure.
And there's no phone that you can tap into. And although it's great to have like a best buddy or a friend with you, like that's still another person, right? So it still distracts from like your own thoughts in your head. So when you do a solo hike, it doesn't have to even be something long. Like it could be literally walking around the neighborhood or through parks. Like I think it's so therapeutic and so powerful, like to just have that, like you're just putting one foot in front of the other, and you have your own thoughts to yourself, and you can really like decompartmentalize everything in your brain and figure out where you need to go, like your next steps in like life or like your next endeavor.
Completely. I totally agree with all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on so many things that I feel like would inspire people who haven't, really gotten into hiking, to want to try it. Are there any other things that for you are just like cathartic about hiking that you would encourage others to get into it for?
Man, I've just been attracting better quality people into my life, like being outdoorsy and through hiking, people that are much more altruistic, just good energy, grateful, um I would say like the also like you said cathartic, right?
Yeah, like I would say, why would you recommend? But you've said so many things that, I mean, I would take your recommendation right now if I wasn't into hiking and be like, I gotta go
Hmm.
on a solo hike. I need to go and get some tribe. But I feel like you also touched on like some deeper things of how hiking um, have affected you personally.
Oh,
Is
I got a
there?
good one. Got a good one.
Okay.
So first, you don't need much to hike as a beginner. You just need like grippy shoes and a water bottle and like a little pack, right? So very accessible to everybody. You don't have to be like a gym rat. You can be a normal person or whatever, right? One thing that I really like, I love recommending hiking to others is because it's like the same sense as traveling, but you're like exercising to arrive at like your destination, right? And at the same time, you're earning it while enjoying the views along the way. Like I haven't done too much traveling the past like out of state or internationally the past year and a half because I felt like I didn't need that because I was getting that through hiking. Like when you go to the mountaintop of like San Gabriel's or Malibu, you feel like you're in a completely different world and that you were traveling. You know, it took you a few hours to get there. You were up there for like many hours, but you're having an adventure and you're also getting like the physical and mental benefits from it. So like I think that's why actually a lot of people are starting to get into hiking because it has that sense of adventure and travel, but you're
Right.
exercising, so that's the difference. Um, Another thing that like when I was on the internet like randomly a few months ago, like something that stood out to me about hiking was like I read an article and it talked about how like getting out in nature decreases like what psychologists it's something called rumination. Are you guys familiar with that?
No.
So like rumination is like it's like the negative thought patterns that play over and over in your head.
Right.
So it's like you dwelling on a certain moment or an embarrassing moment or disappointing moments or thinking that like everything is just going wrong, you know, with your lives. And you keep replaying that over and over in your head. And it's, you know, that's how you fall into deep depression or suicidal thoughts, right? Um, Man, like hiking has done so much for me. Like it's like it removes those thoughts in my head. Like sometimes if I'm really having a bad day or about something or have anxiety or whatever, like I might do a solo hike or do a hike with another friend. And like almost like within 15 minutes of the hike, like I can already feel like my overall mood and happiness just like shifting, right? And
Yes.
like
It's
that's
so
why
true.
that's why I love hiking so much. Like you can just focus on your breath, the trail in front of you. You're just focused on the task at hand, and it gets rid of that rumination because like you know we drive ourselves crazy because of our own mind. That's our greatest weapon and also our biggest weapon against us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like replaying those thoughts of like whatever like a situation you might have been in or how you felt, like those things can like really tear you apart. So like hiking has definitely been a tool of mine to help get rid of like thoughts if I have like negativity like for some reason, right?
Yeah. And do you feel like it's been a way for you to kind of have that maintenance in your life where those thoughts come up less and less because you're hiking more often?
Yeah, what it's also helped me is like when those thoughts actually do come up, I'm better able to manage them now,
Right.
Right.
even if I'm not on the trail, because I felt like I've built up this like stronger sense of mental fortitude, being more outdoorsy or hiking or just being more active. And I'm each time like I'm just like okay, that thought comes up, and it goes away quicker each time because I'm like okay, stop thinking about that. There's no reason to dwell on the past. It's hindsight. Like just chill, you know, like it's fine. So I can do that better and better each time.
Right.
Right. So you've like definitely, I mean, it sounds like it's just affected so much of your life, not only like with your podcast, with community, but physically, mentally. And it also sounds like you just invited all of those things into your into your daily life. Are there any other ways that you feel it's impacted you, like in other parts of your life?
Hmm. I would probably say like other parts of my life, you said?
Yeah, like, I mean, you've spoken about how it's helped you like emotionally and mentally. You've
Hmm.
spoken about how you've had like community because of it. You've started a podcast around it. So like it sounds like so much creation comes of it. And I just wonder if there are any other parts of your life that, you know, this whole way of being and these all these experiences have kind of rippled on to other parts of your life, relationships,
Oh,
or
yes, yeah. Thank
you
you
know.
for helping me out with that. I would definitely say one huge thing about it is it's like people that I've lost contact with that I considered close before, like it's actually brought me full circle to some people again. And then also just like, remember how I alluded to like the deeper connection and relationships that I have with like new and old faces. Like, I just feel like this aspect of me now has just helped me have much deeper and stronger bonds with people, whether it's a newer face, I'm able to communicate better, have a stronger bond, not through like, going out necessarily. And also just like with people that I've lost touch with that I used to consider like good friends, but like now I'm reconnecting with them through doing a hike or the podcast episodes. Even like the podcast episodes, when you talk to someone, you're talking with them for an hour. It's very intimate, right? So like reestablishing
For
like
sure.
that like really powerful connection between you two again is like, it's really impacted like it's brought back a lot of previous relationships in my life and brought in a lot of good new energy of relationships in my life as well.
Yeah. Tati and I were just talking about it too, like because we're going through all this in the world right now where we're so disconnected, I think podcasting has also been a great way to reach out to people and kind of continue to have conversations with new people too.
Oh yeah, you're never gonna forget that hour-long podcast conversation you had with your guest, and I'm beginning to realize that now. This platform is such a powerful tool, like which is I'm sure you both are beginning to realize that through like you're what, like 3-4 episodes in.
Yeah.
So.
No, like 6 now.
Oh geez.
That was quick.
Look at you all. Look at you all.
Yeah, making some headway.
Quick. I mean, it's been a really special experience. I mean, you guys already had a connection, but I feel for sure, even with you after this hour, Justin, I'd be like, yeah, I would totally want to shoot the shit with you and go on a hike. And, it would almost be like we already met, because we did kind of.
Yeah. Hey, let's do it. As soon as
Exactly.
restrictions are all lifted, we'll all do a group hike when it's safe.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us and having this conversation with us, and everyone getting to learn more about you and about your passion for hiking and breakdancing and everything else.
Thank you. It's been an honor being on the show and seeing your guys' like podcasting journey. So it's been really cool to like see each other grow. So
yeah, exactly.
For sure. Thank you so much.